We read about the rest of the world, we see it on films, photographs, yet we New Zealanders have been one of the most isolated nations on Earth. 2.5 million of us in the South Pacific, by sea half a week from anywhere. Now we're half a day from Southeast Asia. Our isolationism has gone. How much do we know of our new neighbours? How do we fit in if jumbo jets haul freight as fast as people? Are Asians affected by the same changes in technology? Our two areas typify advancing peoples. Ourselves from South Pacific isolation tied to a European background, and they finding their feet in the new world of machines, communications, ideas. How does New Zealand fit in Southeast Asia? Over 9 million people live in Malaysia, with nearly 2 million more in Singapore. Of these, nearly half are town-dwelling Chinese, half Malay. Both lands have been independent from British rule since 1957 and are fellow members with us of the Commonwealth. The Prime Minister of Malaysia, Tunku Abdul Rahman.
I personally value the friendship of New Zealand very, very highly. Since we have been independent, we have received a lot of help from New Zealand. Through that close cooperation between New Zealand and ourselves, I have no doubt that great influence will be exercised over the other Asian, Southeast Asian nations to accept New Zealand as one of ourselves.
Singapore's Prime Minister, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew.
Well, a lot depends upon how fast living standards rise in Asia. If they rise at the rate of Japan's and Singapore's, which is about 9 to 10% increase in gross national product per annum, then in another 10 years, we can buy, assuming that this is spread throughout the Asian continent, we can buy 10 times more than what you can sell Britain today in butter and mutton and all the other dairy produce you sell Britain. The trouble, of course, is that there are very few areas in Asia which are making that rate of economic development. But nevertheless, I would say that Singapore offers you a ready marketplace for the sale and the display of your wares, and I think with more and more air travel by jet now, you get closer and closer, and I should imagine that your security interests, your desire to live in peace in the South Pacific can only be met if the Central Pacific is relatively stable. If it's in a state of turmoil and likely to swing to the other side in the balance of world power, then your future can be very hazardous. So I think, apart from just the gain in dollars and cents or pounds that will motivate your traders, I think your government will also be very keen to extend all these other relationships for defense reasons.
For defense reasons, New Zealand maintains her biggest overseas force on the South Malaysian coast. To the 1st Royal New Zealand Infantry Regiment, stationed here at Tarinda Garrison, Commonwealth Brigade, Asian defense is personal danger. When their husbands were away on patrol in Sarawak last year, wives heard Indonesian confrontation was ending. It meant more than newspaper headlines to them.
Well, it gave you a feeling of relief. I mean, you knew, well, that's it, he'll be home. But otherwise, as far as the country itself is concerned, well, I don't think you think of that sort of thing. You think of your husband. He's coming home. That's what confrontation meant. The end of it meant to me.
Most of the wives do, worry about their husbands, and obviously, if they have a family, they must worry a little bit more, but then that's only natural to any wife who's very close to her husband.
Right here, tension is more than political.
Your husband's out on operations and you're thinking there's a danger, especially last year when the men went to Borneo, there was a great danger, and we were all worried about them, and we were all looking to see what was happening. You can't do anything to change the situation. You can only show a normal interest in it, and it can't become an obsession, or else it could make things twice as bad as they are.
It's a relief to be home, though home here is 2.5 degrees from the equator. New Zealanders have defended Malaysia and Singapore since World War II, through the communist emergency and Indonesia's confrontation. They're seasoned jungle fighters now, moving faster in steaming heat than local civilians think possible. There's great contrast here. Alertness in battle, tranquility at home, that makes living full of contradictions.
Your whole way of life is slower because you can't work at such a fast pace as you can in New Zealand in a much more moderate climate. The average person doesn't, and in the old days, in the old colonial days, the MEMs didn't do their own cooking or their own housework.
Tarenda's landscaped with European amenities to make wives feel at home. Trouble is, it cuts them off from outside contacts, understanding the country they're defending. Unless, like most New Zealanders, they set off determinedly to explore.
If you lived in the camp all the time, you wouldn't really get to know Malaya or the local people. Even first trip into Malacca, some wives come back quite flabbergasted because of the difference in the roads and the footpaths and the sanitation, and well, the whole thing is different, the smells and one thing and another. It's only by getting out and pottering around and talking to them that you get to know this. Especially if you speak even a little Malay, they respond very much more to you. Doesn't matter how badly you speak it, but they immediately become your friend as soon as you talk to them in Malay.
Man to man, people get to know each other fast. Our sailors learned Singapore market language years ago. It's strictly cash.
For two, John? $2 for two. $2 for two, and I'll take them. Come on, ladies.
Is that your best price?
Yes, your best price is
Then but I want to 380.
Nah.
380.
2 dear.
We'll take
$2 for two.
$2 for two.
Come on. What's the best price? Just put it in. 6. Hey, joking.
How much for your, how much for the robot?
It's only.
Given stable development, this could become the greatest market the world has ever known, a London of the East, drawing on the developing continent behind it. Children here learn profit margins as ours do rugby football.
No. There's too much. But this must be gold plated for $10.
It's not, no. Because this is a cloth one.
Good
money.
$4.
Maybe 9.5 for it.
9.5? No. For $10? No, I think. What about $8? $8?
Make it $15.
No. Here's the money. Good. $10.
The whole world trades here with goods from San Francisco, Czechoslovakia, Auckland, Rome. On stalls, in ships, through trading banks, Singapore's network of international marketing depends for stability on peace. Trade barriers scarcely exist. At the tip of Asia's mainland, Singapore's huge harbour welcomes all comers, even her recent enemies.
They're mostly from the Indonesian islands opposite Singapore harbour. They bring their produce in exchange for manufactured goods. We even sell your product. New Zealand products such as dairy products and meats to them, which they are short. The point is this, Singapore got to float on trade. So the whole lot, for years and years together, come down and do the trade in Singapore. But due to confrontation, that this thing has been restricted to this area. They got the raw producers, we buy it from them in exchange for manufactured goods. That's simple as that.
New Zealand's representation's rather more formal. Both our high commissions in Malaysia and Singapore have trade commissioners attached. Charles Paul in Singapore.
Well, in terms of tonnage, I haven't got the figures with me, but in terms of value, Singapore's imports are in the vicinity of 550 million pounds, compared with New Zealand, for instance, 396 million pounds. Their exports about 355 million pounds, compared with New Zealand's exports of 371 million pounds. New Zealand fits into this market very well as far as foodstuffs are concerned. Singapore has to import a lot of these to maintain its feed its population. In the manufactured goods lines, there's quite an opportunity for New Zealand manufacturers. How does he go about finding this out and finding out about the market? Well, there's nothing like a personal visit himself. But, of course, this can be expensive. A visit to Singapore for, say, 3 or 4 days, which is rather a short time for a business survey, can cost anything up to £1,000. But he can do a lot within New Zealand himself by approaching the Department of Industries and Commerce for information that they've got in their records, the approach the trade commissioners direct, or through the banks or the manufacturers' federations. But probably the most important to exporters is the export incentive system. Singapore is a highly competitive market. Since it's basically an open market still, manufacturers and exporters throughout the world compete on this market. The New Zealand exporter can, through these export incentives, cost his product to a level which often is competitive. His main problem, even if his product is competitive, is finding somebody who is interested to handle his product. It is a recognised practice in Singapore for importers, rather than wholesalers, although it's done by them to some degree, to extend credit, which by New Zealand standards is fantastic. 180 days to a retailer of foodstuffs is not unknown.
Asian eating habits, though, are not ours. We'd make a big mistake in this hot climate thinking our food sell as in Europe. Unless people are used to high-protein foods, they don't miss it. So to find a market for our agriculture, we've got to watch new trends.
Sweet corn is a luxury item, and it's part of an ice cream mixture for 10 cents. And this place is so cheap because it's more or less a family affair. All the children are helping them in the job, and practically there's no expenses incurred. And for New Zealand exporters who are keen to do this cheap business, they must look to this side of the business who is very cheap. And on the other hand, there are, of course, very large business into this area, important in this area. And there's a big gap between the big business and the small business.
World's supermarket in Malaysia's capital city, Kuala Lumpur, is big business, luxury business, enough to attract a university social survey investigating upper income buying habits. This is the difference in Asia, the various levels of income. Quality always sells. The huge sections of population make specialty lines worthwhile. As prosperity grows, demands increase, and with them need for more shops, building materials and so on. Expanding trade makes further opportunities, so by entering now, we make openings for the future. What we sell secondary. Entering the market's the main thing. Salesmen arriving from New Zealand are apt to find new openings appearing overnight. Jim Mulqueen, a paper pulp salesman from Auckland, has been put onto one by the Trade Commissioner, Charles Paul.
Last time I was here, it wasn't easy to get the feel of the situation because there were changes taking place.
This is true, but in the past year, Singapore's economic position has improved considerably, much better than was ever anticipated in August 1965.
Well, one of the uses you mentioned to me as being a potential here and now has a great interest for us because it doesn't even exist in New Zealand, although it exists in other places.
Yes, well, this is something that they're just doing in Singapore. They
That's
find
right,
it useful here. Perhaps there are many things in New Zealand which have an application here which we haven't thought of using in New Zealand.
What is the other critical factors? For example, in a paper maker is looking for burst or...
This pulp that we introduce into our material is primarily to reduce the impact resistance of a normal asbestos cement sheet, which has an inherent property of being a little bit brittle.
Asia has to build fast. Expanding trade, however good, is not enough. Half the population of Malaysia and Singapore is under 21. Unless plans are made to industrialize, this explosion will have nowhere to go. Industrialize or die.
Secondary industry is a very important thing for us. Every year we turn up thousands of students from school and we got to find places for them to work. Unless we carry on quite extensively the secondary industries, there's no mean of providing employment for these people. And that's why we have provided pioneer industries. That means that for 5 years, the factories that have opened up here is exempted from payment of taxes. And that's all to encourage the setting up of secondary industries.
New Zealand wool goes to this new Malaysian carpet factory set up by Felton Textiles.
We came out here some 3.5 years ago with a market survey that made us think it was worthwhile to bring in a manufacturing company. The customs of this country are such that the parents rely on their children when they're grown up and of a working age to keep them in their old age, a sort of insurance policy. And the children send a good half of their earned money home to their parents if they're living away from them. And you'll find that the children pay for the whole of the house and the food if they're living with them. It means to say that the people of this country, the younger people of this country, have to find work. We have under training at the moment an assistant manager, one Yaya Benisa, who is a Malay. He's been trained in New Zealand, Bachelor of Commerce degree at Christchurch, and he'll then be going on to Melbourne, Australia for 3 or 4 months training in the higher fields of factory management. He'll come back here and carry on as manager of the company.
Asian traditions gradually retreating before the new air-conditioned enterprise of industry, where a new warm wool carpet on the floor signifies cool thinking up above. Air conditioning revolutionizes administration. People are on the ball, keen to plan ahead. They have to be. New Zealand's own main export confers a double benefit. Processing milk powder is a new industry, and by eating it, you get increased stamina and muscle power. Providing it's cheap enough, which ours is, it can be transformed to a variety of products to suit local taste, like stock feed supplement for heavier pigs and poultry, the local meat. This factory in Kuala Lumpur alone uses over 300 tons a month.
When people are educated, there is more and more tendency for them to be choosy with food. And naturally, the dairy product has been regarded and accepted as a very good food. And condensed milk is getting to be more and more popular in this country, much more so than the growth of the population, because more and more people are swinging towards consuming dairy products. And in this country, the dairy product they are used to is sweetened condensed milk. The reason being that the majority of the people are still not rich enough to own refrigerators. This factory, as you know, has been operating for 6 years. But about 2 weeks from now, the production will be increased to twice the quantity we are manufacturing now. In other words, the government encouragement has come to a point when we have to expand very fast. We are not only creating employment for the people who are working in this factory, but also a number of other subsidiary factories which are supplying us with materials such as cartoons, glues, and so on and so forth.
The whole trouble with this region of Asia is the depressing state of living of the poor, of the people here. And after independence, some of the governments tried experimenting on the way to run the government and so on. It didn't pay in some cases, as the result of which the economic of these countries collapsed. And that's where the communists got in. The communists, of course, flourished and live on the distress and on the misery of the people of the area. So with all this economic planning, with all our effort to improve living standard of the people, the communists would have no hold on the people.
We are very small, and we've got to be very urbanized and industrialized and organized in order to make a good living for all. So it's a very different sort of ballast. I mean, you can go back and live off the land, so to speak, you know, just watch your sheep graze and slaughter the sheep for mutton and get the wool and make a living. We can't do that in Singapore. We've got to live by sheer industry and organization. The goods we can make for ourselves and for export, the services that we can render to people who pass by, either by ships or by plane or by land. And this makes for a very different sort of life. But at the same time, what struck me most about New Zealand, which I think I would like to see reproduced in Singapore, is the quality of leadership at the top. You know, you throw up good physicists, research workers, people who discover penicillin, nuclear physics, and so on. If you can do that with 2 million people, I think we ought to be able to do likewise. And, you know, the thrusts, people who climb up mountains and capture Mount Everest. I think you require that kind of spirit, the willingness to attempt something which is novel and new, and a forward-looking spirit which is prepared to go with the times. And that, I think, is what I would like to see happen in Singapore, what I see New Zealand have done.
Sudden development has human problems, though. Ideas we take for granted need to be taught here. On Singapore's waterfront, New Zealand's helped establish a research unit to lay down standards for manufacturers, testing products for strength.
The Industrial Research Unit was developed to assist in the development of local industry. Quality control is one of our biggest problems.
Fred Roper's a Colombo Plan engineer seconded from New Zealand.
Before I arrived in Singapore, I had the impression that an industrial development was going ahead. But the general impression I have now, and I have retained since I have been here for the last 3 years, was that this activity was more in the nature of an industrial revolution. In the past, the businessman had a great deal to do with sales, perhaps, which would not be likely to be repeated in some cases. Tourist trade, for example, it's necessary now for them to change their philosophy. Unless their product is up to a certain standard, they obviously will neither sell nor keep their customers. And there's a tremendous appreciation of the necessity to export. Unless the goods produced are the same quality as those that are available overseas, well then evidently there will be little possibility of Singapore goods finding a market overseas.
5.8 millivolts,
technological considerations are new. A lot of public education's needed to get results. It's not as though they're unused to painstaking workmanship, though. This factory in Kuala Lumpur's built an extensive export trade handcrafting pewterware from local tin. But this kind of skilled cottage industry, though it earns full overseas exchange, turning out finished articles from natural resources, can't compare economically with highly skilled mechanized industries. In Malaysia, there's only one. Selangor, Malaysia, is centre of the world's largest tin mining operation.
This is the former Loban dredge in Otago. It was brought here near Kuala Lumpur in 1956, and those who have seen this dredge before in New Zealand won't probably recognize it because there's been a lot of modifications made to it. A lot is being done in the tin industry to improve its efficiency and work all the low-grade grounds and smaller areas so that none of the tin-bearing land is wasted. At present, the Malaysian government is deriving quite a lot of revenue from the mining industry in the form of export duty. In fact, it is the largest money earner for Malaysia at the moment, even more than rubber, because of the high tin price and the low rubber price.
Each bag's worth £40 sterling.
There's a lot of similarity between the development of New Zealand and Malaysia in that the population was attracted to these mining areas, and around these areas the agricultural development took place. In Malaya it was rubber.
Rubber, thousands of acres of it, and tin make Malaysia the wealthiest nation in Southeast Asia. But as world chief supplier, she can't boost income by raising production. It gluts the market, reducing prices. The problem? In rural areas, rubber growing's all they know. Unless they're educated to take on other jobs, rising population means less income per head. In Pahang, central West Malaysia, jungle's been cleared for Kampong, New Zealand, a rehabilitation scheme we financed under the Colombo Plan for the Malaysian government. 200 families are settled here to grow, under supervision, rubber, the only crop that guarantees returns. Their education's from a rubber manager, the Kampong School, and 2 New Zealanders working for volunteer service abroad, Jan and Rex Niven.
In the monsoon season, which is approximately December, January in this area, the rain will affect their work greatly. They cannot go to work and weed around their rubber trees when it's wet. So therefore, in the monsoon season, they would probably only work one day in 3 or 4. Well, about now they will be in their houses. They'll be having their afternoon siesta from about 1 o'clock round to about, say, 4 or 4:30. When the job was first thought out here, these FLDA schemes are set up to sort of resettle the very poor rural people. They get about $70 a month, which is about what, £8.10 a month, and they've got the average family here is about 7 or 8. So you see, it's pretty grim.
Rex's wife, Jan, a registered nurse, runs the Kampong clinic.
I was led to believe when I came here that to start with the people wouldn't trust me, but they appeared to have. One man in particular I can remember came to me and said, well look, what can I do? We have 10 children, I have very little money. He said, I haven't had intercourse with my wife for 4 years. He was frightened of having more children. And I have 25 women at the moment who are taking the oral contraceptives, which is one of the only forms of family planning that is acceptable to the Malay people. So I talked to them about the tablets, and now they're really quite happy. There's a better relationship in their marriage. But some of the husbands will have absolutely nothing to do with it, really. They don't sort of really believe that you can plan a family at all. It's just the will of Allah, which is one of the things these people say whenever anything goes wrong. You see, there's no cooperation between husband and wife, as a New Zealander would know. I mean, no husband and wife sits down and talks together like we do, discuss problems. So we're something of an oddity, the things we do.
most New Zealanders won't think very much of getting together and working as a team, working together for a common objective. Compared to here, the settlers here in the kampong find it very difficult to work together for a common objective. This is mainly due to the fact that in their old kampongs, their social structure has forced this upon them. Quite a lot of our people in this scheme here, were previously fishermen. They very, very seldom work together. Even two fellas, very difficult to get to work together. To completely change their life and make them sort of agricultural workers is, well, pretty vast. The psychological changes and the social changes. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to actually raise their income. They sort of tentatively suggested that I should try raising fish and raising poultry here in the scheme, you see. So I looked around the scheme and found a swamp area down here which was relatively flat and had a good supply of water, which are two essentials for fish ponds. And I got the people to the stage where we had groups of five working satisfactorily together on a project of common interest. But the problem is that I think that these people, especially in the FLDA scheme, have been given so much now. They've been given so much they learn to accept and not to give anything. Actually, it was the High Commissioner himself that first noticed this here, you see. So he thought it would be interesting to have a couple come here and try to do some sort of community development work, trying to get them to work into some community projects and this sort of thing, you see. I think we have made a difference. But whether this is lasting or not, really we can't tell. It really, if you were to come back here in perhaps 2 years' time or 3 years' time, and then to live here again for, say, 3 or 4 months, then we'd be able to assess whether our 2 years here was really of very much good.
Education. How can you educate a growing society? This is Jackie's super air-conditioned discotheque. Wealthy Malaysian teenagers switch on Europe and forget the atmosphere outside. Eager to imitate, they've yet to find a rhythm of their own. At Tangling, Singapore, they have their own way of opening a fountain.
As everybody knows, the basic target of the government since 1959 has been national development at all levels. I hope that Tangling Circus will be a source of relaxation for our citizens. And now I have great pleasure in declaring the fountain open. Thank you.
Symbols are needed to weld new nations together. The new architecture of Malaysia and Singapore symbolizes opportunities in the great march forward. This education is necessary. Change must become respectable. Conservatism hard to keep. How fast are they progressing? Dave Ivory is at Malaysia's new university's agricultural faculty.
This faculty was provided by the New Zealand government under Colombo Plan. Initially there were only 12 students started in 1960. This year there are 60 students in the second year, 32 students in the third year, and 25 students in the fourth year. Well, I'm looking into the factors which govern the yield of rice, particularly looking at the influence of density on yield of the plant and per acre yield, employed by the university on a 3-year contract, lecturing in plant physiology. The government is trying to get the smallholders to grow food crops and for the country to become self-sufficient in food crops.
Most Malaysians were originally seafarers, but KD Malaya, the Malaysian Navy, must now train cadets from the ground up with instructors like New Zealander Bruce Barclay.
In Malaysia, there's very little in the way of technical training in schools or technical training outside schools. The Malaysian Navy has expanded quite enormously over the last year or so, and there's a very urgent need to train men to operate and maintain this very sophisticated machinery fitted in these craft. This is quite a problem for us as well as for the Malaysian ratings themselves. However, we find that they are very quick to adapt themselves to technical problems on technical subjects, and many of them do extremely well in their field.
They're eager to advance. Over 1,000 have graduated at New Zealand University since the Colombo Plan began. But you can't step into the jet age without leaving some people behind. Communications, the stumbling block, understanding between men. To keep pace with technology, technology that moves ahead so fast. It's a problem we all face.
Yes, I found the fault. There's no earth on the P wire. Can you explain how you derived that? P21 on the group sector is not providing the earth. Yes. When I operate the...
Some ex-New Zealand Colombo students, one with a New Zealand wife, have readjustment problems.
You've been overseas to study somewhere, mostly in New Zealand, at some stage.
One of the biggest things that most of us have to do is to readjust our ideas to suit the, our cultural and perhaps social context.
When I was in New Zealand, you passed your orders down in English and everybody understood it. But in Malaya, you work and you pass your orders down to English. In English, a few people will understand you, and then these people will have to pass their orders down into by their different dialects. And by the time the order reaches down to the people who are concerned most with the execution of the order, it is a totally different thing altogether.
I feel that the main benefit to be gained from studying overseas in this context is that you can become a more flexible person.
Well, it is beginning to to take place in small ways. There are more campaigns on public education, on different aspects, on health and on other family planning, for instance, as we discussed. And I think it will gather momentum very soon, and perhaps very soon people are made more aware of things that are which are present, which we didn't realize before.
The new generation holds the key. Singapore's National Library is thronged on Saturday afternoons when children finish school for the week, eager for new books. New Zealand's new donations are well used. For them, outside ideas are part of their changing society, in which tradition holds ground so long as it doesn't hold things back. They grow tired reading. They're the new society. On Singapore's National Day, they lead the parade, celebrating new nationhood. Theirs is the future, the multiracial, multicultural society, welded together by leaders today determined to defend their new growth with civilian police and a volunteer citizens' army. Above them fly their allies, planes of the Commonwealth, Canberras of New Zealand's 14 Squadron. Forces of the Commonwealth have kept the peace here since the Second World War. During that time, development in Malaysia and Singapore economically has been fantastic. But more important still, they've gained a national direction of value to the world, a stability vital to maintain.
552 French.
Roger, Victor Alpha. Taxi for runway 20 left-hand, QFE 1012.
Our 41 squadron's been here since 1955.
Mission 2 to have a contact at your 12 o'clock, range 4 miles.
The fight for stability is not over. The pressure of population of different racial values restricts reformers. Development walks a tightrope between future needs and habits of the past. Yet of all Asia, Malaysia and Singapore could well be first to build a strong amalgam of tradition and technology bridging that gap.
I think if we can establish relative stability and turn the energies of the peoples in Southeast Asia towards constructive pursuits, building roads, bridges, schools, universities, houses, factories, producing the things which people want or believe will make them happy, a good life, yes. Then I think the kind of relationship we will develop with New Zealand will fall into place naturally. I mean, the things which you can produce cheaply, which we like, and the things which we can produce cheaply because of our much greater availability of labor, which you can't do, they will naturally fall into place. The problem which besets me is, will this happen in South Asia? Will people tend to be constructive and to build new societies for their peoples, or will they engage in futile and sterile conflicts?
I'm confident that the way we are cooperating together, the way we are working together, the way we understand one another will continue to strengthen the friendship that exists between New Zealand and ourselves. And that friendship is very vital for the well-being of this region of Asia. It does make me feel that as between your people and our people, there's some common interest, some common liking for one another. And so I hope we'll continue to be like that.
In our changing world, New Zealand's already in Southeast Asia, potentially the most dynamically advancing area in the world, whose population, markets, industries, once developed, could transform world trade. It needs effort. New Zealand's shown already through trade, aid, and common defence. She'll help make that effort.